idea that we can think of a business, government, as a living system, similar to the human body, in that, the whole is comprised of its parts. So my fingers are part of the system that is my body. Just like in a business, the sales team is part of the system, or in government, or in healthcare, whatever field you'd like to look at. It's an interdisciplinary idea that a lot of fields use, to explain how the whole is comprised of its parts. The best way to look at a system and systems theory is to really study what it is and then talk about, well, so what? So that's what I'm going to describe here. So what are the characteristics that make up a system? Now, usually when we're talking about systems, I'm talking about a soft system, a living system. There are hard systems that are linear, very, no room, not holistic. I'm talking about a holistic living system. So there are four primary characteristics that we talk about when we talk about systems theory. They are embeddedness, interdependence, interconnection, and self-renewal. Embeddedness, interdependence, interconnection, and self-renewal. Embeddedness recognizes that any system of interest is embedded in some larger supersystem made up of subsystems. That's from a user design book by Carl Chelman. So embedded recognizes that any system of interest is embedded in some larger supersystem made up of subsystems. All right, so that means that there is a larger supersystem made up of a bunch of systems. So think of the human body. I'll relate this to the human body is the easy way to do it. Think of the human body is a big supersystem, and we're made up of a bunch of systems required for the system to live, which are our organs, right? We can't survive without our skin, or you can't survive without a heart. Our organs are also systems, So you can keep breaking them down into more and more systems. All right. Interdependence explains that a system and its parts relate to one another and therefore are affected by one another. So what does that mean? Okay, so everything's related, right? Let me give you an example. I have a cut on my finger, and it hurts. So that cut on my finger can prevent the rest of my body from doing a lot of things, right? I might not be able to go out. I might have to stay in. I might have to go get stitches. It could affect me in that it can get infected and really infect the whole entire system. It could bleed a lot, and I could need, a transfusion or something. It can really affect you. Think about you have a stubbed toe, and all of a sudden you can't walk. It's affected the whole rest of your body. Or you have back pain, and you have to lay down in bed. The whole rest of the system is affected. You can't just ignore one part of the system or get rid of or do something to one part of the system without it affecting everything else. All right, interconnectedness describes the connections within the system. So each part can have a strong or weak connection. So for example, your back, like your spine and nerves, have a really strong connection to everywhere. Like a pinched nerve in your back can cause your hand to be numb. That's a really strong connection. But a cut on your finger isn't going to really affect your foot. It's a weak connection. It's not as strong of a connection between the hand and foot as there is between the back and the rest of your body. And then self-renewing explains that no matter what happens to the system, positive or negative, it will work itself out. Think of the human body. You get a cut on your finger. What's going to happen? It's either going to heal or it's going to get infected and you're going to get really sick, but something's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. All right, so what is this? What does any of this mean, and why is it important for us to understand? Why do I try to, think about systems theory when I'm in a business and I'm going to do something? So the big so what is schools, companies, governments, any organization is a system. So I look at those descriptors that I just, the things, the characteristics of the system, and I say, well, how does that relate to this company? So whenever I'm doing any kind of project in a company, I'm implementing some type of intervention, some kind of change, right? I'm training people on how to do something new. I'm training them on how to do this or that. We're implementing a new computer system. Maybe we're firing people. Maybe we're hiring people. All of those things affect the system. So the idea is, How does that affect the system? You have to know, you have to consider, before you implement an intervention, before you start some project, what are the effects? You don't just do stuff. You have to ask and really analyze and say to yourself, well, what are the effects of this on the system? If we let go, if we have a sales team consisting of 5 people and we let go of 3 of them, how does that affect sales? Well, first of all, it's going to affect sales that we're going to have less sales, right? Because now we have 2 of 5 people. How does that affect the rest of the company? Well, now that's going to trickle down because we're not going to have as many sales, so we're not going to need as many developers. So all of a sudden, in 3 months from now, firing those 3 salespeople is now leading to us firing 60% of our developers because we don't have enough stuff for them to develop. How does it trickle down? What are those effects? What are all the connections? Is there a strong connection between hiring someone? How does that affect everyone else? Is there a strong connection between firings? Like, what are the connections? Are they strong? Are they weak? How do they link together? So you have to determine that before you act. So before you do something, during your analysis, when you're initiating a project and project management, before you do anything, you consider, how does this affect the system? Thank you.